to this very special episode of LinkedIn Marketing Live. My name is Alex Rin. I'm a senior content marketing manager here at LinkedIn. And in this live stream, we're going to talk about B2B marketing measurement, everyone's favorite topic. We were going to cover the current state of it. How did we get here? What are the common pain points? How can we potentially alleviate those pain points with emerging tools and technology? And have predictions about the future. If we had a B2B crystal ball, what would we say? Luckily, we have top marketing leaders here who are going to share what they're doing on their teams and what they're implementing and how they're making these big, bold, data-driven decisions about the future. So before we go any further, I'd like to bring up to the screen our esteemed speakers so that they can introduce themselves and tell us a bit about what they do. So Allison, I'd love to begin with you.
Hi, how are you? Hi, my name is Allison. I am the SVP of Marketing at Nielsen. So I get to work for a measurement company and talk about measurement. How fun is that?
The most fun.
Right. I'm a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, exactly. KV, over to you.
Thank you, Alex. Hi, I head up client solutions for Analytics in APAC, and my role involves bringing the best of Analytics in service of our clients. And more specifically, I'm here to expand our measurement footprint across 13 markets in APAC. I've been doing this for over 3 years now, and every day brings new opportunities and challenges. Excited to be here. Thank you, Alex, for having me, and looking forward to the session.
Thank you. So little note here, KV is joining from APAC, so it's approximately like 1 a.m. there. So we're gonna fuel you up with all the coffee so you stay alert throughout. Richard,
feel pretty good.
Last but not least.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me to join. I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm Richard. I'm the Vice President of Demand Gen at Board. We're a B2B SaaS company, and we were recently acquired by HG Capital for about $3 billion plus. I've spent the last 10 years in B2B marketing and started my career at Google.
Amazing. Well, we're really lucky to have you all here. I'm just as excited as our audience to learn from you guys because you are the best at what you do. So let's dig into the topic. I have a lot of questions for you guys. So let's begin with the challenges within B2B marketing. So measuring ROI in B2B shouldn't feel like you're piecing together a 1,000-piece puzzle in the dark, yet for many organizations, it really does. In fact, our recent B2B marketing benchmark report found that 87% of B2B marketers report challenges in measuring long-term impact for their campaigns. So between longer sales cycles, data scattered across channels, and conflicting priorities, proving the impact of your marketing efforts has never been more complex in many respects. And it's no secret that, like many things in life, the B2B customer journey is far from linear. With buyers exposed to thousands of ads across multiple platforms daily, tying ad spend to meaningful results can feel overwhelming. Plus, 66% of B2B marketers are expected to justify ad spend at least monthly, which is bananas to me because I feel like that doesn't really account for the robust full funnel journey experience that we need to create for our customers, looking at it through a customer-centric lens. So, Allison, I'd love to start with gathering some of your thoughts. How do you think we got here, and how can we even begin to alleviate this disconnect?
Well, I think that when you get to this point where marketing is really driving sales, or you're working in that, your sales teams are under pressure, right? So they're starting to look at where can they go to deliver near-term results. And they believe in marketing, which is a great thing, right? That's such a positive to be like, hey, what can marketing do? So they really want to talk to you on a monthly basis, and they want to talk about those near-term results. And they want to talk about how you're helping to continue to deliver that demand, even if it's from full funnel demand across the board. I think one thing we have found is really starting to work with people on like doing annual campaign planning and bringing our commercial teams through the conversation by aligning with their sales strategy, aligning to that product roadmap, aligning to those key moments can take some of that pressure off to like, what did you do for me lately? Where you're kind of like, hey, remember we talked about this. Like, this is our joint agreement on to how we are going to accomplish this goal together. And these are the KPIs that we all agreed we would be targeting and looking at throughout the cycle. And, monthly, you can decide to dial things up or dial things back, and really start to understand how you're performing by looking at that end goal and using those KPIs to say, how are we performing toward accomplishing that? And that same tone, it's really important to be flexible. I know we've experienced, especially those of us who've been working in marketing for the last 5 years, major points of disruption where things just come out of nowhere, it feels like, and you have to react to a trend. If you've planned 100% to capacity, you can't react. So you kind of have to plan for the fact that there's going to be disruption, plan for the fact that there's going to be change. A CMO I worked for said you are only as good as you can only plan for 80%. Like if you plan for 100%, you're going to end up replanning 20 of it anyway. I think keeping that flexibility is really, really helpful so that you can be in those conversations monthly with something of value.
Yeah, I think the joint campaign planning is a key part to avoid the credit battle that we typically see amongst teams. And we'll dig in a little bit about like what exactly those joint KPIs look like, because I want this to be as tactical as it can be for our audience. But KV, I know you had some thoughts when we talked before. Why do you think so many marketers struggle to connect their efforts to results?
Yeah, I think Alison kind of dwelled on this a lot, and where I want to kind of hone in on a little more is like from a measurement lens, right? Now, the stats that you said is kind of pretty much covers vast majority of the industry, and it's not that where they find themselves in is due to lack of effort. But there's no silver bullet to it. In from our perspective, we have tried attacking this through our clients in a systematic approach, and something which can be emulated if it resonates with the broader audience here. First thing is having the right measurement tools and technology in place. That's just half the battle that you have won already. When you do that, but then comes the real challenge in identifying and focusing on metrics that truly drive performance and growth. And here's where we encourage marketers to take a little more broader perspective and implementing a more balanced framework. I'll explain what I mean by that in a bit, which also aligns with their business priorities while enabling that regular updates to the management that Alison was speaking about earlier. Now, when we speak about the balanced measurement approach, we're looking at what provides a holistic view to the business, and not only from an organizational lens. Some of the metrics that you would typically look as pipeline, bookings, customer acquisition costs, but also from a customer's perspective. Eventually, you're looking at the CSATs, the value potential that you're driving, the Net Promoter Score, those kind of metrics. Now, understanding what resonates to Alison's point throughout the buyer's journey and what drives that engagement throughout the customer lifecycle is extremely critical. Now, and the lastly, which I would want to conclude that with is how do you bring that alignment, right? We believe some of this exercise needs to be co-developed. It's not just one function doing it, but it has to be co-developed with a strong interdepartmental collaboration that can result in a more balanced and useful measurement framework that may be representative of the state of the business. Now, then again, once you do it, it's not that you kind of stop it. It's a living and breathing exercise. And when we believe developing an effective data and measurement strategy is an ongoing process, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw Anthea mentioned in the chat, there needs to be a lot of education around the fact that there isn't a silver bullet. So yeah, that maybe some education up about that, giving the space to be able to test and to learn. But yeah, thanks for talking about what you mean by a balanced measurement approach. I completely agree. I think misaligned metrics equals missed opportunities. So when decision makers focus on volume metrics like clicks and ROAS, marketing teams focus on leads and conversion efficiency. Without alignment, businesses are missing revenue driving opportunities. So I wanted to shift the conversation a little bit to talk about that. So Richard, question for you. How can aligning marketing and sales metrics benefit an organization?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think there's kind of keys. A third three key stakeholders that you talked about. There's the marketing team, the sales team, and the executive team. And for me, what I've seen as foundational to success is first driving that alignment between marketing and sales, so that sales can be your voice and aligned in setting expectations and the education on the executive leadership side. I think that expectations have definitely risen with the transition from traditional to digital media. I think there's an expectation that all things are knowable and trackable, and then realistically they're not, especially in B2B, where we have long sales cycles, we have multiple touches, and very long, complex customer journeys. So getting alignment on what's being measured, how it's being measured, and what the North Stars are, I think is absolutely critical to make sure that you can then allocate resources correctly to drive against that result. Without that alignment, people just get pulled in multiple directions and end up spending time and energy on campaigns that don't drive the ultimate business outcome that everyone's looking to derive, which is typically around revenue, retention, cross-sell or upsell. And so spending the time to get that alignment and to build those relationships across the stakeholders so that there's a mutual understanding, I think it's a critical foundation for success in B2B.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And Allison, you had mentioned when we were speaking before, just like a little bit of more, bringing it to more real life of like how to align. What does it look like actually to align sales and marketing in an organization?
Yeah, I think going back to those, what does success look like in a joint agreement of like what success looks like? We talk a lot about, I mean, we've all had that campaign, right? Where everybody agreed it's going to be about client engagement. It's going to, we're not going to look at downloads and leads. We're going to look at client engagement. And the first reporting call you get on, how many downloads do we have? And we're like, I thought we were going to talk about engagement. What happened to that? So really kind of, it's those regular level sets and being heavily engaged, I think, with your sales organization and really using your data. We created something called like a marketing engagement score, where we really try to look at of all the things we're putting out in the ecosystem, from our own channels to our paid channels, and really kind of saying, where are people engaging? Where are we seeing them engage? How does that give us an indicator of the buyer journey, and communicating that back to our sales team, saying, hey, your top 10 clients are actually downloading this report. They're reading this article. They're attending this webinar. They're engaging, which means that shows they're acting. They're interested. Something has got them, moving forward, and being able to give them that type of information, because we all know that I think there's a great Gartner study that'll say like only 17% of the sales cycle is spent talking to a salesperson. And so we have a lot of conversation with our sales team going, we're trying to get the rest of that. We're trying to communicate with them, engage them during the rest of that piece. And we want to better inform you on how they're being engaged and what they're acting on. And it really just kind of starts to create like, we're in this with you kind of approach, and using metrics and engagement metrics to identify that in a way that we all can understand as part of sales success. So I'm always a big fan of mining your data to the best that you can, to help understand like what really is working.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to eventually come back to that marketing engagement score. That's so interesting to me. Would love to know if you can share like the criteria that go into that and the tools. But first, we're going to move to our next extremely fun segment of what's in, what's out, what's hot, what's not. So this is basically, we're going to go around the horn, and each of our industry leaders here is going to share one measurement metric, tactic, strategy that's out, one that's in and one that's out. We're going to leave it in the past. Obviously, it's much more nuanced than that, but it's fun to just narrow it down to one thing. So Richard, we'll start with you. What's hot, what's not?
Thank you. And I'm going to take a somewhat controversial stance in saying that MQLs don't matter. Historically, I think a lot of marketing organizations have been focused on lead volume or MQL volume. But ultimately, if you drive a lot of MQLs, but they're not converting or progressing down the funnel, it's not driving a business result. And you'll get pushback from sales, and you'll get a misalignment between expectations. And so What I've seen is a lot of organizations moving away from the overemphasis, particularly within marketing on MQLs, to really adopting lower funnel metrics in alignment with sales, of looking at what's the opportunity, what's the pipeline volume and the dollar pipeline that we're driving, to make sure that when you're talking about metrics, you're talking about things that not just marketing cares about, but that sales cares about. And that doesn't mean that you abandon those early funnel, early stage metrics entirely, because they can be good early indicators of whether your campaigns are succeeding or getting traction. But we need to look at the whole funnel in conjunction with sales and really understand not just how things are performing at the front end, but how are the activities of marketing driving impact and progression throughout the funnel, ultimately to revenue.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the title of this live stream is From Vanity to Value. And what the intention behind that is saying is that we're not saying vanity metrics are throwaway. They're good signals, but you have to get closer to the bottom line. So
absolutely
love that. KV, what about you? What's in, what's out?
I'm going to take a more of not a singular a metric approach or a channel angle, but more how we look at measurement, right? Like it's more conceptual. I would say like kind of the point solutions, the point measurement solutions paves way to more of a leading indicator led measurement solution. The reason why we are taking this approach, especially for B2B side of things, where you have a fairly longish cycle, is that you need to start looking at leading indicators, which are early signals that predict business outcomes. Now, this is also like helps in like kind of bringing in some of those earlier question, Alex, that you were asking, how does the marketing and sales come together? Because like, you know, on one end, sales looks at the lagged indicator, on the other end, a spectrum. Marketers typically are like kind of dealing with leading indicators. Now, you need to start validating the leading indicators that are predictive of the lagged indicators. Now, this could be, some of the metrics that you're looking at from a sales perspective, but unless proven and validated, that alignment will never happen. So throw away the point solutions, take more predictive angle to the longish purchase cycles that we have, and like kind of make the measurement representative of the state of business that you're in. And naturally, one question that audience may ask is okay, how do you track the signals when the signals are going away in a cookieless world? Now that's where the whole bunch of privacy first methods of capturing meaningful insights and establishing the relationships between the demand gen tactics, leading indicators, and business outcomes comes in super critical. And we also feel that there has to be a healthy balance between the cognitive and the behavioral metrics, critical to take that more accurate measurement approach. So no point solutions, take a more of a leading indicator led measurement solutions, which is more representative of your business.
Yep, that makes sense to me. Allison, yeah, what's in, what's out?
We're talking about what's in with, like measurement. And I think really starting to quantify what are those KPIs around the buyer journey. What does it look like? How do we identify people and what we're trying to, how do we measure how we're doing from that point of discovery to that point of conversion, I love the comment about the MQL. We spend a lot of time, it's an indicator, but we spend a lot of time understanding the pipeline. We spend a lot of time understanding how well MQLs convert, at what percentage they convert, so that it can help us better understand, like, how much more do we need to drive? Where do we need to drive them? So I think that full buyer journey analysis and how it's impacting not only your new business, but your existing business, like you have to keep people happy. There's always another company knocking down their door for a meeting. There's always somebody else in there. So how do you make sure you are showing value? And how do you measure that value? That's a lot of time. We spend a lot of time working on that measurement of value throughout the sales cycle. And how do we understand what marketing is delivering in that regard? And I think going back to that relationship with sales, relationship with product, relationship with the executive team is aligning on, we all agree that that's valuable. We all agree that's a valuable touch point delivering. I think Vanity, what's out it's interesting, kind of like we're coming back into a trend where brand and performance are kind of coming back together. I think we all experienced what I called the race to the bottom, which was it all has to be the bottom funnel, bottom metric, bottom activity. If I was in, paid search is king, like that kind of message, because paid search will always win. I think we're starting to be, what's out is that. Like, I think people are starting to get a more balanced thought process and not looking at just that one channel or that one KPI and saying that that's it, that's going to do it. We were there. We're starting to see the pendulum swing back to the middle a little bit more and start to really look across the full spectrum of what marketing can deliver and where we need to be placing our bets throughout that, versus just everybody race to the bottom and do the last thing possible to drive that last touch, please. And forget about everything else. We'll deal with that later.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, marketing is about connecting with people. It's like, that's what it's about. So if we're just focusing on the very bottom of the funnel, it's like we all sound like used car salesmen talking to each other.
We all have lived there for the last, I think 18, the thing that's out is we used to think of things in 2-year trends is how my team and I would think about stuff. Is like, we're in a 2-year trend. I'm thinking 12, 18 months now. Like, I'm seeing things that I would normally have said, that's going to shift in 2 years. I'm watching shift in 12, 18 months. So things are moving faster.
Yeah, and kind of to build on that a little bit, I think the note around looking beyond the bottom of the funnel, I think there's some inherent limitations within CRM systems like Salesforce and HubSpot, where they tend to credit everything to the last click before the lead was generated. And in terms of like what's in is we're now seeing platforms and technologies that help give much better multi-touch attribution, so that people can have that nuance of, here's the value of each touch throughout the entire customer journey, and not being over reliant on that one signal that, you happen to reach that right person at the right time that generated a lead. But tying it all together and saying, like, here's the holistic view of the activities that led up to that moment, and help to drive that person into those deeper conversations.
I mean, I always say 7 times 7 different ways to get someone to understand something once. Like, people do not wake up in the morning and go, oh my goodness, I need to buy your product right now, having no prompt, no understanding of the brand, no understanding of what you're in the market for. So that's kind of our job in trying to figure out, like, how do we show that that's happening, and how do we identify the ones that are really impactful?
Yep. Say 7.
Research does matter. I'm not saying it matters. I love it. It's more of just kind of approach.
Yep. I agree. Say things 7 times, 7 different ways, and then maybe they'll think of you when they want to buy. Maybe. All right. So I'm reading the sign between the tea leaves here that it's all about data, having the right data signals. The more data, the better. So how do you use data to bridge the gap between your ad spend and your ROI? KB, let's kick it off with you.
Yeah, no, I'll keep this short because there are like kind of established methods in doing this, right? Like, I'll name the 5 and then like I'll pass it on to the others to like kind of get their opinions too. Like, and it'll be interesting to see how they would have attacked this. The way we typically do this is like kind of again, not any point solution, but different measurement solutions that helps us like kind of get to the combined source of truth, so to speak, and how we stitch the data across different metrics, as well as qualitative and quantitative lens. I would start with looking at some like kind of first like get the more meaningful signals captured. Given that you're looking at the cookieless world, like kind of do the right measurement solutions like CAPI and so on and so forth, the CRM data integration with your ad platforms. Those are critical ones, like really low hanging fruit there to like kind of get to that data to insight and impact sort of value chain. The second one would be incrementality testing, although you can't be really doing this across multiple channels, but you would do it in a certain limited fashion, but still gives you a little more deterministic way of looking at it. The third one, which we spoke about, is more of a demand sensing solution, which is more predictive of how much demand you generate and what sort of a demand like kind of it converts into outcomes. And in between, what you do is actively manage the demand through the channels that you can, while you're like kind of doing more of a top of the funnel sort of campaigns with the active demand generation part of it. The last one I would say is like kind of use of market mix modeling, which we haven't seen in the B2B space a lot of times, like, and that's a perfect solution to like kind of get to the ROI. There are reasons why it has not been forced to, but there are reasons why it has not been forced also is because like it's marketers have felt that it's not possible to like kind of bring in to the long-term solutions or long-term sales cycles. Now, market mix modeling has evolved. You can capture, signals which are like go beyond a year, like sponsorship marketing specifically, sports marketing specifically we've seen like, how it multi-year effects can be baked in some of the even B2C sales cycles. So I would definitely think that there are some of these techniques would help us like kind of solve for that question that you asked for, Alex.
Cool. And you mentioned a couple of tools in there, particularly CAPI. For everyone who's watching that doesn't know, what is CAPI?
I can jump in.
Sorry, go on, Jeff. Sorry.
The conversion API from LinkedIn is CAPI, and it's a great way to pipe in your CRM data and things beyond sort of what's tracked by the LinkedIn pixel directly into the LinkedIn platform, so you can make optimizations to your campaigns.
Yep. It's LinkedIn Conversions API, lovingly known as CAPI internally. So if you hear that, that's what we're talking about. Allison, what do you think about how do you use data to bridge the gap between your ad spend and ROI?
I think when we started in my last 2 roles, I was at Wells Fargo for a long time before I was at Nielsen. And the first thing we did was kind of create our data ecosystem. It's something that goes in, people don't spend a lot of time on. They immediately go to a tool or a solution, or say that's what my analytics team does. And I think we really got in as marketers, worked with our analytics team and said, we kind of need to be what I call data hoarders, but in the best possible way. Because you don't know what data point is going to be important necessarily. You don't know what's going to be erased. We have to be very privacy centric, which means we need to understand all the touch points that we have and the data available to us so that we can be privacy centric and we can understand consumer wants and wishes. But I think when we've got this fragmented user experience and it fragments in the best ways, every time something new and cool comes out in a new way to engage, we have to work harder to develop that picture of the buyer journey and connect it through to the story. I think things we started looking at more recently is, again, that marketing engagement. What are all the different ways people are engaging? I think another way we've tried to tie it to ROI is, since we have this data, we look at versions of the picture, and maybe you guys do this too, is, hey, what does it look like now in terms of the universe of consumers that we are engaging with or brought into the ecosystem? How are they growing comparative to the population? How are the opportunities growing? How is the upsell, cross-sell? Can we identify those marketing touch points that really help drive greater customer value, 2-3 years out, so that we can also then talk about how did we do that? And is there a uniqueness to the customer that makes us do that? Is there a uniqueness to our relationship with the sales? Is there some uniqueness to the product that they're buying that makes that conversation just a better one? And so we're kind of trying to tie it to not only just what we did today or what we did this month, this week, this quarter, but also how are those customers that we're bringing in and how are those engagements continuing to make that customer a positive growth, so that we're not just remembered for what we did last week, right? We're remembered for, hey, we did a series of things over the last 12, 18, 24 months with this customer, and look at how they continue to grow. Let's do more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to move on to what a lot of people have been asking about in the chat, which is, what are the specific tools? People are like, okay, we get it. What are the tools that you're using? So my question that I want to pose to you guys, and KB, maybe you can talk about, just for the folks, just level set, like on the call, like what is media mix modeling, and like, has it helped you derive any specific theories that have impacted your decisions on what channels to invest in? So I'll start with that, and then I'll ask a broader question about like the tools that we use at each layer of the funnel.
Yeah. No, I'll try making it fairly non-technical. Market mix modeling is essentially a statistical way of like kind of looking at your input variables like media, the impact of media or marketing, the factors that you control, like from an organization standpoint, and also like the factors that you do not control goes in, and it explains how it impacts the business outcome that you're trying to measure. Now there are very many different ways to do it. There are a lot of open source techniques that are also like accessible now, and over a period of time, a lot of progress in machine learning techniques has made market mix modeling accessible not just to like kind of high spending marketers, but also to like kind of mid-tier marketers, I would say. And there's a lot of like kind of openness from the marketers that we have seen in embracing market mix modeling ever since the cookieless world scenario has been we have embarked on. Now, some of the things that we were able to pick specifically on the B2B space is like kind of short form content, like how the short form content itself has been embraced, especially coming in from APAC, like where there is like kind of a massive splurge and like kind of content consumption that you see, specifically with the short form video consumption across generations. APAC leads the world. How and how like the social platforms itself like kind of have risen, and then we are seeing some interesting patterns in digital media landscape itself. Like gone are the days when we are looking at like kind of traditional media is losing out to digital media, but there is like interesting intra digital channel allocation that is we are seeing, where more and more dollars are going into the video platforms, and specifically the short form video formats. That's an interesting one. And then the second one, which we were able to pick, was coming in from the streaming side of things, like specifically the connected television, which makes up for like 50% of the time spent online in APAC. Now, where we are going with this is the connected television should be part of your media mix if your audience targeting demands it, but more so we feel that like for across verticals it is going to be imperative more and more. Now, based on our research also, like and then some of the mixed models that we have done in this part of the world, CTV can provide you with a completely new incremental reach to certain audiences that traditional mediums do not normally like kind of reach. You may think cord cutters, yes, but we are referring more to affluent and exclusive audience groups, which you traditionally, which you might not get from the traditional mediums as you move further along the time span.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that's a great example of like using data to deduce which channels are the most impactful for your business at a specific time, and like how these trends are going to impact your content strategy moving forward. So Richard, I want to give the mic to you to talk about how you report in different stages of the buyer's journey and what tools you use.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to be very sort of tactical and in the weeds here. Guys, I say first and foremost, like set up your CRM for success. And by that, I mean, don't just accept the default sort of last touch before lead is generated model. We've set up custom fields within our CRM to also capture that first touch. And that helps us to look at performance through a couple of different lenses of using the last touch model versus the first touch, and asking if that changes how we would make decisions in our media mix. The second kind of stage is to leverage multi-touch attribution platforms. For us, we're leveraging Dream Data, which is a partner with LinkedIn. And that gives us really more of the holistic customer journey, where we're able to match up data from different sources and understand what's the value of each touch as they progress through the funnel. And the added benefit of having that multi-touch attribution platform is that through their integrations with both Google and LinkedIn, we're able to bring in that multi-touch data directly into our marketing platform so that we can take action within our campaigns. Another tool for use is lead scoring to help validate whether you're reaching the right people. So for us, we're leveraging Mad Kudu to look at are we hitting the right demographics, firmographics, and engagement signals that indicate that these leads will progress further down the funnel. And then with all these different data platforms, you're going to get a different perspective on what drives business result and what doesn't. So to validate the assumptions that come out of that, we do incremental testing with our budgets. We do holdout tests within our ABM platforms to see what's the marginal impact of dialing up specific types of channels or versus others. And then we also leverage some tools that are available from our partners. And so for LinkedIn, it's been revenue attribution reports. We're starting to look at clean rooms where we can both share first-party data and join that together to have a holistic view of the impact of our marketing investment. And using tools like brand lift studies to understand for those top of funnel campaigns how that investment is driving awareness and engagement with our brand.
Yeah, I love that because top of the funnel campaigns are traditionally a little bit more difficult to measure, even though they are so important. So that's great to have that brand lift that actually shows the numbers so that you can invest more in top of the funnel. Allison, what about you? What are the specific tools that you're seeing success with throughout the buyer's journey?
I mean, I think one thing that we're doing, I mean, you mentioned your CRM system, and it's so important to set it up for success. We've all seen it set up poorly. And you end up chasing your tail. So I'm always the advocate of get it right first, kind of thing. But it's also, going back to the sales team, one of the benefits of setting your CRM tool up for success and having it and, modifying it so it can report out on those deeper marketing touch points is also a really great way to stay in lockstep with your sales team because they're looking at the same data that you're looking at. And so you can have those uniform conversations in a certain way. I will say we do use some of your standard suite of data, but we operate in more of a big data environment type of approach so that we can mine our data and create and do ongoing different types of analysis to understand like, what does this say? What does that say? And from there, we then go and seek tools and solutions. It also goes back to invest in really smart analysts. I am hugely a big analyst fan. I wish I could have been a marketing analyst. I would have been a very happy person. I'm not that talented. So I envy them and find some of the smartest people, and they really do tell you, and someone who's honest and tells me, hey, that didn't work, Allison. But really, there's so much, things like, there's so much things that big data environments now you can do. They used to be kind of like only you had to have an analyst team like we had at Wells Fargo, like hundreds. And now there's so many new tools in there that a smart analyst can help you leverage that. There's so much more you can do off the shelf, which is great. We're definitely leveraging your standard suite of solutions. I think we focus a lot on content measurement solutions as well. So we use a platform called Notch that really helps us understand how is our content performing? What is the sentiment around our content? Is it helping us change opinions? It allows us to ask survey questions and really engage and also understand how our content is being leveraged throughout the buyer journey toward that action. So we can understand how to really keep that conversation going throughout the user journey. We've also invested in quite a few event platform tools to help us with book meetings, tracking conversations, just some of those key action points that happen, because events are a really big investment for B2B companies, especially one like ours. And so being able to connect the dot between all those different touch points and bring it together in one picture is really great. I'm not a big point solution person. I more or less like to mine the data, but it's kind of, I always say these solutions are personal. There's not like a guide to like buy these 4 things and you're going to be great. It's like, you have to look at, do you have the teams to use them? How much time are you going to spend onboarding and training them? Do you have your data organized to leverage them in the right way? Are you ever going to be able to even get there? Because that could be a reason you would choose one solution over the other. So we can tell you all the great things, but what my end result to you is it is a personal decision to you, your company, your team, and the goals and objectives that you want to accomplish.
I think that's a really critical note of like, you can have the fastest car in the world, but if you don't have a driver, it's not going anywhere. And so making sure that the downside of the equation is there to support the tools, that's absolutely critical.
I used to call it, you give a 4-year-old a Ferrari. Like it's going to look great sitting in your driveway, but it's not going anywhere.
I love that analogy. And Allison, it's not too late. We could all just become analysts.
I'm like, I just love getting on those calls. They're my favorite ones.
I want to talk about, so more and more reports are showing that marketers, B2B marketers, B2C marketers are leveraging, or the reason why they buy a product is because word of mouth and social proof. Data is proving this is the number one reason why people buy. And there seems to be maybe even like a growing distrust of ads, quite frankly, because Gen Z and millennials who are decision makers are like hyper aware when we're being marketed to. So what would you say about like, how are you measuring word of mouth or social proof or accounting for that in your measurement strategy? And this is kind of an open question. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but if anyone has any thoughts.
It's tough. I mean, you break my heart a little bit when you're like, I don't trust advertising. I'm like, what have I spent my life doing? But
Well,
the
the authenticity of an ad has to come through. You know what I mean? Like the old way of advertising where it's like very corporate speak.
Yes.
Like we have to talk to our customers the way that they talk to each other. Like sometimes they see an ad and I'm like, who talks like that? Like that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say just trust.
Yeah, for sure.
What this brings to mind for me is really the concept of give value to get value and content marketing, where a lot of what we do is just genuinely care about our customers and what they're facing in their professions and how we can lend insights that help them to succeed without asking for anything in return. And I think if you take that approach of providing thoughtful, meaningful, impactful content, that just helps to elevate the customers and their professions, then that helps to build that credibility and that trust, so that when people get to the point of, oh, we're starting to look for a solution, they know that they can come to you and have a greater degree of faith that they're not just being sold something, but that you genuinely engage with and care about them as professionals and within that community of customers.
And I think it's aligning to one of the things we've done is really take a look at like, what does the year look like for our customer? What are the moments that matter to them? When are they making decisions? And then what data do we have that can help them in that moment? How do we get ahead of, this year we put out an upfronts, new fronts guide. It's our second year of doing that. We work with a lot of advertisers who are buying in that, we have to get, they're looking for trends. They're looking for information. How can we help in those moments when they need it versus when, we would kind of laugh and say, we should talk about things when we wanted to talk about them, versus when people really need the information and help. So shifting that value exchange to delivering, using what you have. I mean, I'm lucky. Again, I work at Nielsen. I have access to a lot of marketer data and insights for years and years and years that we're able to really help different organizations say, here's what we're seeing. Here's that bullet point. Here's that metrics you needed for that meeting with your CFO, or they're saying, I go back, I'm old enough to remember when people used to call us a different company and say, I need a mobile app. And we're like, if you build it, they don't come, but they still, but they needed that data point to go in and talk to that person that wanted a mobile app and say, hey, we've got to invest this in it. We've got to do that. Just those important, again, to your point, if you're the one giving the value, if you're the one helping, if you're the one being that consultative voice in the industry, when it does come to those picking that 5 customers, and they usually have already had their select 5 before they've called you, before they've engaged and called a salesperson, your goal is to get into that list of 5.
Yep, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about the future. So let's bring it to our next segment, which is B2B Crystal Ball. Again, we're going to go around the horn and have each of you talk about, if you had a B2B crystal ball, what would the future say about measurement? What's going to be the next big thing in B2B marketing measurement in the next 5 years? What will the emerging tools and technology bring? Anything that you would double down on? KV, let's start with you. What's in your B2B crystal ball?
I think the first thing is which we need to understand primarily is what is driving this, right? Like, the growth is like kind of an elusive concept more and more. And of the 10 verticals that we are tracking today, we have only projected only 2 verticals to have an excellent growth outlook. Of pharma, healthcare, travel, and entertainment. The rest will like kind of at best have like a fair, like a flat to in some cases negative growth. Customer acquisition costs are going up. Like across all verticals, we're going to see like 4 to 15% due to slower growth projections and intensified competition. So naturally, this will have a spiraling effect on marketing investment accountability and how you prove ROI. We feel like more and more marketers will be either forced to embrace or naturally embrace privacy first solutions across not just measurement but also data and targeting that balances the effectiveness, marketing effectiveness without compromising the user consent and data protection. Definitely, we have seen the brands that have invested in direct customer relations stand to gain more than the ones which are following or are like kind of starting off, just now kind of a scenario. Then you have how AI plays into the targeting side of things, not just from a customer or a prospect identification, but more in terms of like, to Richard's point, content, contextual targeting, real-time contextual signals are going to replace more invasive behavioral tracking solutions. And this is like kind of going to be more and more the case with the B2B side of things too. B2C, we are already seeing this happen. B2B, like kind of will kind of follow very quickly. In terms of the embrace, it's not that the solution doesn't exist. In terms of the embrace, we're going to see more and more of that. The last one which I had was privacy first measurement solutions, such as the platform and neutral clean rooms. That's going to like kind of take off. We definitely feel with more and more data sets sitting on specific walled gardens or like kind of platform environments, if I may call so. The neutral clean rooms, we are seeing like kind of markets like Australia being one of the front runners in APAC, and of course in the Western world, like you have the US, Canada, and like kind of UK leading the chart on that. And the last but not least, the agile frameworks for measurement will also see increased adoption by marketers. Those were a few which we are spotting, Alex, as of now.
Amazing. Love it. That is a robust crystal ball, and I'm here for it. Richard, what's in your B2B crystal ball?
Oh my gosh, you covered so much ground there. I agree definitely the death of cookies and the need to take privacy first approaches. I think clean rooms are going to be a big story over the next 5 years, and the move away from tracking in how it's traditionally been done. Media mix modeling, I think, is very interesting. I think what we'll also see is AI being embedded in more and more marketing platforms, and that unlocking opportunities for people to leverage their data and their signals in smart ways to drive efficiency across their marketing mix. One good example is LinkedIn predictive audiences, where multiple B2Bs have seen great success in there. Within Google and their smart bidding and performance-based campaigns, I think we're seeing this trend where advertising platforms are more geared towards ingesting signals from advertisers of, let's tell them what's important to our business. And then they use machine learning to combine that with the behavioral signals that they have in order to get the right message to the right person at the right time. I think on the enterprise side, we'll see a continued growth within data lakes and big data mining and that big data analytics of leveraging all that multiple signals that are combined into a single first-party database to derive insights about customer behavior that's predictive of what activities drive customer engagement and down funnel activities. So I think those are the few of the things I see.
Great. Allison, what's in your crystal ball?
Well, I think B2B marketing will continue to be cool. I know it was kind of like a concept, but more recently, as we've seen some of the larger B2B organizations really jump into marketing, I think B2B marketing in some of the more creative, ways of working, I think are going to be, I think we talked about some of those ads that just feel, non great, non-authentic was the word I was going for. And so really how we do that. I think we're going to continue to drive investment and measurement. That's a lot what Richard talked about. It's a lot, what KV is talking about is that increased importance in investment and measurement, but I think it's different measurement, just like everyone's talking about. We're going to do a lot more data mining. And as things like AI, machine learning models are becoming easier, AI agents are becoming easier to build, it's going to really help us at every level, from the small to medium business to the large enterprise, be able to use our data to make smarter marketing decisions. So, increasing your knowledge of clean rooms, increasing your knowledge of big data environments, increasing your knowledge of how are people really using AI and what is bright, shiny object versus what is just what is really working, are going to be really great questions to ask, trends to follow, things to ask people about. And don't be afraid to ask a vendor, hey, you say you're using AI, you walk in, every vendor's walking in with their AI pitch right now. How is it working? Give me some case studies. What is it working? What are you predicting and building for over the next 18 to 24 months that I should be thinking about as I am using your solution or selecting other solutions? We are seeing it really jump into marketing in a great way. We're using a lot for content and things like that. So I think it's going to be, keeping an eye on some of those really big trends that are going to make your life easier. I was at a conference recently and someone said about AI, it's not about replacing people, which I know is what a lot of people, when they hear, is about replacing people. It's not. It's about finding a way to get 30% more out of your team. And giving them, imagine if you had 30% more time. Imagine if those insights were a question away. And you could really just get moving rather than spending 2 weeks analyzing. So I think we're going to start to get some of that.
Yeah, I think your B2B crystal ball is my favorite because you said that B2B marketing is going to continue to be cool.
It's cool.
Which is a great point. We should get that woven on a pillow. But also really great point about AI and asking for case studies and how exactly it's helped. Our research has found that 57% of marketers leverage AI already for better targeting results, and 90% believe it will positively transform their measurement within the next 5 years. So it's here to stay. Get involved, ask the questions, but again, just don't jump on board just with any solution without just because you have FOMO. So yeah, and I think, with that, there's so much more that I want to ask and double click into, but we are completely out of time. So I just want to thank you all genuinely for being here. This has been such an insightful session, truly. And all the comments in the chat here have reflected that as well. So we're so grateful. Thank you so much. I'm going to have you guys back definitely, if nothing else, to write a blog post on your thoughts, because everything was so interesting and relevant for our audience. So thank you again for taking the time.
Awesome. Thank you.
No, thank you. Love the comments. If anyone has follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So follow these folks on LinkedIn or wherever. If they have blog or websites, I'm sure they can drop those in the chat as well. This is all we have for this session today, but we will see you again in May for a LinkedIn Marketing Live, where we're going to be focusing specifically on B2B video. It's hot right now. Everyone's talking about it. So how can you best leverage it, the use cases, what to track, some great examples from brands who are doing it well, all the things. Thank you so much and take care of yourselves.